Have with me Executive Director, Journalist for Democratic Rights, Adewale Adeoye. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
The long-awaited APC national primaries or presidential primary is now here, but all of this did not come without its intrigues. In fact, if you follow the conversation on social media, there are Nigerians who honestly believe that this is the most intriguing our politics have been since the return to democratic rule. What's your impression of all that has played out just before today and even today?
Well, I think in the history of Nigeria, this is one of the most difficult conventions for so many reasons. In the first place is the ruling party has more governors, more people in the Senate. And because of what, the strategic position of Nigeria in global affairs, the whole international community is interested in this primary because that is the party that is in power, negotiating from a position of strength, and the party that has the potential to produce the next president, even though other parties could also obstacle them. The other factor is that we have big names in the ring. You have Atiku, who contested primaries as far back as 1992. You have somebody like Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, who was in the Senate in 1992-93, a former governor of Lagos State. You have somebody like Dr. Fayemi, who has been in radical political movement since the 80s. And then you have the current vice president, Osinbajo. And also you have the Senate president that cannot be undermined. And of course you have ministers, so they are big names in the contest. And of course, we also notice that for the past few years, the race actually had started. If you see what is going on now, the fact that as far back as 3 years ago, they had to remove the chairman. Oshomole was aced out after Oyegu.
So all of this was since it started, far back then.
Yes, a build up to the presidential election. And you had a situation where, for the first time in human memory, we had a party that had a sole administrator for more than 1 year. Where National Working Committee, never met for 1 year, and who was a former governor running the affairs of the party. And, this was an indication that there was already a plan, to ensure that a candidate of a particular group in the party, there's a group that actually want that. Then you're talking about the reduction of the delegates from 7,000 to 2,340 something. Statutory delegates are no longer going to vote. And if you look at the fact that the president did not sign the Electoral Act, which has reduced certain, makes certain states to be at disadvantage. Lagos, for instance, was in the league of states like Borno, Katsina, Kano, and Osun State. It was almost number 4 or 5. Now Lagos is about number 19 in terms of the number of delegates. So all these things were suggestions that there is a desperate move, a conscious calculation to ensure that a particular group wants to produce the candidate. And if you also look at the body language of the president, he said some months ago that if he was allowed to mention the presidential candidate, people will be angry with him. So that was significant information that deep down in his mind he was interested, and probably would have wished to make an input to whoever would have succeeded him. And of course, you see so many, conflicting signals coming from him. The party chairman came and said, look, we have adopted one particular candidate. I just met with the president. Another one came and said, no, it's not true. So there is a gang up, within the party. And I think we have contending forces. And we hope at the end of the day, the will of the people will triumph.
All right. We'll still have in the studio the executive director, journalist for Democratic Rights, Adewale Adeoye. We had statements from, we saw the Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Dr. Bafemi Hamzat, as well as a presidential aspirant, Jack Rich, and then we saw the arrival of the former Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, who is also an aspirant. But I want to pick on a statement that the Deputy Governor of Lagos State made. He said that the chairman would need to explain what happened, and it was referring to the announcement he made about the Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, being the consensus candidate of the president and himself, which the president later denied that he had not anointed any candidate. But do you think that, why do you think that there was an insistence on Ahmed Lawan? And does that sort of play into what you were saying earlier about how all of what we saw earlier 3 years ago, as far back as 3 years ago, was a build-up to what we witnessed in the last 1 week?
Absolutely. And I think when he claimed the president made that statement, that was a very worthy, statement that, the president had anointed a particular candidate. And the senior special advisor on media, Garba, issued another statement that, the president had not anointed a candidate. The president himself earlier had said, giving us the impression that he had a candidate. In all of this, if it was another president, he would have come out to speak. So we are only hearing drum beats from his aides. Nobody sending conflicting signals. And I think his silence at this time is loud enough for us to almost conclude that Mr. President will have wished to have a candidate imposed on the party. And even when you are talking about consensus candidate, the Constitution is very clear, Electoral Act, on consensus candidate. Consensus candidate does not mean the position by the president. Consensus candidate, that section. That
basically is just preference.
Yes, Section 84 of the Electoral Act. It involves voluntary withdrawal of the aspirants. It involves endorsement by all the aspirants. And then it also involves consent.
A written document.
A written, voluntary written, consent of all the aspirants, not one, not two, all the aspirants. And the next step is that if there is no consensus, you go to direct or indirect primary. Even where there is consensus, the electoral says that that candidate that has been adopted has to be taken to the convention for ratification by the delegates. So consensus is not just sitting down in your bedroom and then 2 people, 3 people taking decisions and then you go and report, because as far as party democracy is concerned, the president has only one vote, even though he's the leader of the party. Those delegates are not there to come and say granite. They have left their states with the intention to come and vote for the future of their country. So the intention to come and vote cannot be annulled by a mere presidential proclamation in any democratic setting. So the normal thing is that when you want to have a consensus, it has to be in line with the Constitution that we have, the president has sworn to uphold. So I think it will have been good.
Consensus is not made by pronouncement.
It's not.
It has to go through.
There's a process for consensus.
Let me ask you, because this question continues to come up. You're right about the fact that the president has not said anything in person.
Yes.
He only gave an indication earlier this year that he has someone he would like to succeed him, and said he would not mention a name for fear of the fact that the person will be killed, that which is security reasons. But when we saw during the Obasanjo tenure, when he wanted a successor, he was very vocal. He said the late Adewale was a successor. He wanted that to happen, and he made it happen.
Yes.
Why do you think that in this case, the president has not come out to say, this is who I want, but it keeps indicating that there is a preference for someone, but it's not as vocal as we saw the former president?
But in the case of Obasanjo, he also set up a committee. I think it was led at that time by Fayose, that they should go and look for a successor for him. And there was a kind of engagement of even the state governors. The second term of Obasanjo, he nearly lost because the vice president, Atiku, was preferred by a lot of governors. The governors are very powerful when we are talking about, conventions. So the president, in trying to say that, okay, I want this particular person, at the end of the day, you pass through a process. he set up a committee, they look for, the candidate, and then the parties, the governors were engaged. And at the end of the day, they produce someone that emerged as the candidate of the party. But in this case, few days, you have a lot of things have happened. First, the convention was shifted. By who? Was it debated by the party? Were the aspirants consulted? And then shifted to a day. The INEC closing date is tomorrow. So not giving room for anyone to go to any party at all. So it means that there's a conscious plan to ensure that, look, we are ready for a hatchet job. And I think it's not good for democracy. Because when you begin to see this thing at the level of primaries, then what is the hope that we're going to have a free and fair election?
So, and how do you see this playing out? The names, we've seen, heard reports about the northern governors, about 13 northern governors, saying these are the 5 recommended candidates. 23 were on the ballot. These are the 5 recommended candidates. We've heard the national chairman saying 13 recommended candidates out of the 23. There seems to be recommendations here and there. How do you expect this to play out in terms of number of candidates that will eventually make it to the ballot today, and then whether this will end up being rancor-free? Yeah,
in the first place, an unusual situation had developed, and the governors are responding to that unusual situation. In a normal democratic setting, there is no point saying you want to recommend certain candidates to the president. You can recommend candidates to your caucus or to delegates from your states. Or you can recommend candidates to party leadership, then they can now meet delegates and talk to them. That has to be done on the ground. We don't have the position of the president of a country. It's not the position of a traditional ruler that that has it can be see that whatever he says nobody can challenge him. So if the governors are making recommendations of 5 people, was it born out of consultation with these other people? Have these other aspirants, have they withdrawn? If they are not withdrawn, then it means that other aspirants will have to go to the field. The normal thing will have been that allow the aspirants to go to the field. Then if you have a consensus, do it in line with the constitution. The aspirants that don't want to contest will withdraw. And then, through the normal process that we have said through Section 84 of the Electoral Act, when they withdraw, they can now adopt the candidate and then announce to the whole world. So this idea of trying to manipulate, but I think I have to commend some of the governors of the northern state that for peace, unity and stability, that they should bring a candidate from the south. Look at what is going on. The PDP current president aspirant is from the north. The PDP chairman is from the north. As well as the APC. Yes, the current president of the country is from the north. I guess the party chairman of APC is from the north. So I guess that's where the northern governors took the clue from. We should commend them. It does look like power seems to be domiciled in the north, and some should be moved to the south. Well, thank you so much for talking to us. Executive Director, Journalist for Democratic Rights, Adewale Adeoye. Thank you.